It was just a loitering call on a sweltering August night, a petty annoyance at the end of a long shift. But in less than a minute, a casual shove would shatter my entire world. The air was thick and heavy, the kind of late August heat that clings to your uniform and makes the leather of your duty belt squeak with every step. My shift was supposed to be over in 30 minutes. 30 minutes until I could get out of this cruiser, peel this sweat-soaked vest off my chest, and go home to a cold beer and the mindless drone of the TV. My partner, Rossi, was a rookie, barely 6 months on the job, and he still had that wide-eyed, jumpy energy that I'd had beaten out of me years ago. He was humming along to some pop song on the radio, tapping his fingers on the dash. I just grunted and stared out at the cracked pavement and boarded up storefronts of the Riverbend district. "Dispatch to 7 Adam 12, what's your 20? The radio crackled. I grabbed the mic. 7 Adam 12, we're corner of Elm and 4th, end of tour. I put a little extra emphasis on that last part, a hint for them not to bother us with any last-minute nonsense. 10-4. We've got a loitering complaint, group of youths on that corner, loud music. Complainant says they're blocking the sidewalk. Can you handle? I sighed. A long, weary exhalation. Loitering. The most pointless call in the book. 10-4. Dispatch. We'll check it out. I killed the radio and shot a look at Rossi. All right, hotshot. Let's go shake some trees. Try not to write a novel in your report this time. He gave a nervous chuckle, and we got out. The bass from a portable speaker was thumping a rhythm you could feel in your teeth. Just like the call said, a group of 4 or 5 kids, late teens, were huddled around the speaker on the steps of a derelict laundromat. The moment they saw the cruiser, it was like a switch flipped. The music was cut off. Eyes darted around, and they started to melt away into the alleys and side streets. Standard procedure. They knew the drill. We knew the drill. But one man didn't move. He wasn't with the kids. He was older, maybe mid-40s, lean and tall. He was a black man, dressed in a way that didn't quite fit the neighborhood. He wasn't in a suit, but his dark jeans were crisp, his sneakers looked expensive, and the simple gray t-shirt he wore fit him perfectly. He was just standing there, hands in his pockets, watching the kids scatter with a look of detached amusement. He was an anomaly, a puzzle piece from a different box. And in my experience, puzzle pieces that don't fit are usually trouble. I sauntered over, letting my footsteps echo on the pavement. I put on my official business face, a carefully cultivated blend of boredom and authority. "Evening," I said, stopping a few feet from him. "Quite a party you had going here." He turned his head slowly, his eyes appraising me. They were calm, intelligent eyes. There was no fear in them, and that immediately put me on edge. "Just enjoying the local culture, officer." His voice was deep, smooth, with no trace of the street slang I was used to hearing around here. "This your corner?" I asked, letting a little bit of steel into my tone. "Because the people who actually live here don't appreciate the noise." He gave a slight, almost imperceptible smile. "I'm just taking a walk." "Is that a crime now?" Rossi had come up behind me, hovering nervously. I could feel his rookie anxiety radiating off him. "Sir," Rossi started, ever the polite one, "we just need to know what your business is in the area." The man ignored Rossi, his gaze locked on me. "My business," he said, drawing the words out, "is my own. Unless I'm being detained, I'm free to walk wherever I please. Am I not?" Something about his attitude, his calm defiance, it was like sandpaper on my last nerve. It had been a long, hot day, and I was in no mood for a debate on civil liberties on a grimy street corner. This guy thought he was smart. He thought he was better than me. I could see it in the set of his jaw. "I'm going to need to see some ID," I said, my voice flat. "On what grounds?" he asked, his eyebrows raising slightly. "I haven't done anything wrong. You saw it yourself. The kids were playing music. They left. I'm just standing here." "The grounds are that I asked you to," I snapped. My patience was gone. "You're being evasive in an area known for high crime. That's enough for me. Now show me your ID, or I'm taking you in for obstruction." He slowly pulled one hand from his pocket. For a split second my own hand twitched towards my sidearm, but he just held it up, palm open. "This is harassment, officer. And you know it." That was it. That was the spark. The word harassment. It's what they all say. The crooks, the lawyers, the armchair quarterbacks who've never walked a beat in their lives. He was challenging my authority, right here on my street, in front of my rookie partner. I took a step closer, invading his personal space, using my size to try and intimidate him. "You've got a real mouth on you. You know that," I growled, getting right in his face. "Maybe a night in the tank will teach you some respect for the badge." He didn't flinch. He didn't back down an inch. He just looked at me, his calm expression finally hardening into something cold and solid. "I think," he said, his voice dropping to a low, dangerous level, "that you are making a very serious mistake." And I shoved him. It wasn't a punch, not a full-on assault, but it was a hard, aggressive shove with the heel of my hand, right in his chest. "Back up when I'm talking to you," I yelled. I expected him to stumble, to catch his balance, to finally show some fear. I did not expect him to go down. He tripped backward over the uneven curb, his arms flailing, and the back of his head connected with the brick wall of the laundromat with a sickening, hollow thud. He crumpled to the ground, motionless. A sudden, ice-cold dread washed over me, instantly extinguishing my anger. "Dave! Jesus Christ!" Rossi yelled. Rushing forward, he knelt beside the man. Sir, can you hear me?" My heart was hammering against my ribs. My career, my life, flashed before my eyes. This was bad. This was a nightmare. A white cop, an unarmed black man on the ground, a head injury. I was finished. Rossi was already reaching for his radio, his face pale with panic. "I'm calling for a bus." Before he could key the mic, the man on the ground groaned. He stirred, pushing himself up onto one elbow, his eyes squeezed shut for a moment. He touched the back of his head, wincing. There was no blood, thank God. He slowly, painfully, got to his feet, brushing the grime off his expensive jeans. He looked at Rossi, then his eyes found mine. The calm was gone, replaced by a look of profound, chilling disappointment. He didn't say a word. He just pulled out a sleek, modern smartphone. My gut clenched. He was going to record me. Or worse, call a lawyer. "Put the phone away," I ordered, my voice shakier than I wanted. "You're under arrest." He ignored me completely. He dialed a number and put the phone to his ear. I could hear it ringing. Then someone picked up. "Yeah, it's me," the man said into the phone, his voice steady as a rock. He was still looking right at me. "Listen, I'm going to be late. I'm down on Elm and 4th. Ran into a bit of a situation." "Yeah. No, I'm fine. Just send a supervisor down here. And do me a favor. Call Captain Miller's office. Let him know his new boss has been delayed." His new boss. The words echoed in the sudden, suffocating silence of the street. It was like a grenade had gone off, but only I could hear the ringing in my ears. Rossi's mouth was hanging open, his eyes wide as dinner plates, darting between me and the man on the phone. My own mind was a chaotic mess, a frantic scramble to make sense of something that made no sense at all. It was a bluff. It had to be. Some kind of sovereign citizen nonsense, or maybe this guy was a connected lawyer trying to scare me straight. The new chief? No. Impossible. We'd all heard the rumors, of course, that the city council was bringing in an outsider to clean up the department, someone from a big city department up north. But there was no name yet, no face, just whispers in the locker room. The man hung up and slid the phone back into his pocket. He didn't say anything. He just stood there, under the flickering yellow street lamp, and watched me. The smug defiance was gone, replaced by a cold, appraising stare. It was the look a biologist might give a specimen under a microscope. He was dissecting me with his eyes, and I felt every shred of my authority, my confidence, my 20 years on the job, just evaporate into the humid night air. I was the one who was supposed to be in control here. I was the cop. He was the problem. But in the space of a 30-second phone call, the entire world had flipped upside down. "Dave," Rossi whispered, his voice trembling. "What did he say? Boss?" "Shut up, Rossi," I hissed, not taking my eyes off the man. I had to regain control. I took a half step forward, trying to project an authority I no longer felt. "All right, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but you're done. You're coming with us." My hand went to my cuffs, but it felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. My threat hung in the air, pathetic and hollow. The man didn't even blink. He just raised an eyebrow slightly, a silent challenge. Go on. Try it. And I knew I couldn't. The seed of doubt he had planted had already taken root and was choking the life out of me. What if he wasn't bluffing? What if he was exactly who he said he was? Shoving a non-compliant civilian was one thing. A report, a few questions from internal affairs, maybe a slap on the wrist. Assaulting the incoming chief of police, that was a career-ending, life-destroying catastrophe. The wail of a siren cut through the tension, growing louder and closer. But it wasn't the familiar yelp of a patrol car. It was a deeper, more urgent sound. Then another joined it. Within seconds the street was flooded with flashing red and blue lights, reflecting off the grimy windows of the abandoned storefronts. It wasn't a single supervisor's car. It was a full-blown motorcade. 2 patrol cars screeched to a halt, blocking the intersection, and right behind them, a gleaming black unmarked sedan slammed to a stop right next to us. The driver's side door of the sedan flew open, and Captain Miller himself climbed out. Captain Frank Miller. The precinct commander. A man I hadn't spoken to in over a year. He was a barrel-chested bull of a man with a shock of white hair and a face that looked like it had been carved out of granite. He looked frantic, his eyes wide with a panic I had never seen on him before. He didn't even look at me or Rossi. His entire focus was on the man I had just shoved against a wall. "Chief Evans!" Miller barked, rushing over to him. He was almost fawning, his voice stripped of its usual command. "Are you okay? Dispatch got a call from the commissioner's office. Said there was an incident." Chief Evans. The name hit me like a physical blow. The rumors were true, and he was standing right here, the man whose head had just cracked against that brick wall. My stomach turned to ice water. My legs felt weak. I wanted to be sick right there on the pavement. Evans finally tore his gaze away from me and looked at Captain Miller. His demeanor softened slightly, but there was still a dangerous edge to his voice. "I'm fine, Frank. A little bump on the head, that's all. I decided to take a walk around the neighborhood before my official start tomorrow. Get a feel for the streets. Seems I got a very thorough introduction to your community policing standards." Miller's face went from panicked to purple with rage. He finally turned, his eyes zeroing in on me and Rossi. But he knew. You could see it in his expression. He knew who the problem was. Rossi looked like a scared kid about to confess to breaking a window. I just stood there, frozen, the empty, useless handcuffs still dangling from my belt. "What the hell happened here, officer?" Miller's voice was a low growl, a promise of pain. I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What could I say? He had a mouth on him, Captain. He disrespected me. How insane and childish did that sound now? How could I possibly explain the rage that had made me lose control? Chief Evans saved me the trouble. He took a small step forward, commanding the attention of everyone on the street. He looked from me to Rossi, then back to Miller. The entire scene was held in a state of suspended animation, waiting for his verdict. He rubbed the back of his head, a thoughtful, almost theatrical gesture. "Well, Frank," he said, his voice calm and measured, but carrying over the hum of the idling engines. "Your officer here was concerned. He felt I didn't belong in this neighborhood." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. Then he raised a hand and pointed a single, steady finger directly at me. "But I think the more pressing issue is that he put his hands on me, and I'd really like to know why." My world narrowed to the space between Chief Evans's pointing finger and my own face. The flashing light seemed to pulse in time with the frantic drumming in my chest. Every cop on the scene was staring at me. Miller's face was a mask of pure fury, his jaw so tight I thought his teeth might crack. He looked like he wanted to personally tear the badge off my chest. I felt Rossi shift his weight beside me, a nervous, jerky movement. The silence stretched, thick and damning. They were all waiting for my answer. Why? Why did I shove him? Because I was tired. Because it was hot. Because he looked at me like I was dirt on his shoe. Because for a split second, I had all the power, and he had none, and I wanted him to know it. The real reasons were a toxic stew of ego, exhaustion, and prejudice and not a single one of them was a valid excuse. They were career suicide. I was a dead man walking. I stammered, my throat dry as dust. He was non-compliant, Captain, refused to provide identification. His posture was aggressive. I perceived him as a threat and used a minimal amount of force to create distance. The words came out sounding rehearsed and robotic, the standard lines from the defensive tactics manual. Even to my own ears they sounded like a pathetic lie. Minimal force? The man's head had hit a brick wall. Chief Evans let out a short, sharp laugh. It wasn't a sound of humor. It was cold, sharp, and full of contempt. "A threat?" he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "A threat to what, officer? Your ego?" I was standing on a public sidewalk. Your officer, whose name I have yet to learn, approached me with unprovoked hostility. He demanded my papers like this was some kind of police state, and when I questioned his legal authority to do so, he assaulted me. He turned his piercing gaze back to Captain Miller. "Is this the kind of training your men receive, Frank? To escalate a conversation into a physical altercation within 60 seconds. Miller's eyes were practically bulging. He took a step towards me, his voice a furious whisper that was somehow more terrifying than a shout. "Your name and badge number. Now." "Officer Dave McCormick, sir," I managed to say, my own name tasting like ash in my mouth. "Badge 724? "Rossi," Miller barked, turning to my partner. "You were here. You saw it. Give me your statement." Rossi looked like a deer caught in the headlights of an oncoming truck. His eyes flickered towards me for a brief, terrified moment. I knew what he was thinking. The blue wall of silence. We protect our own. It's the first unspoken rule you learn. But he was looking at Captain Miller, and beyond him, the new chief of police. His career had barely started. Was he going to throw it all away to cover for my colossal screw-up? I saw the conflict warring in his young face. He was a good kid, a by-the-book cop. He saw what I did. He knew it was wrong. "Sir," Rossi began, his voice barely audible. "We responded to a loitering call. The group dispersed. Chief Evans, the gentleman, was still here. Officer McCormick engaged him in conversation. He trailed off, swallowing hard. The gentleman questioned Officer McCormick's reason for requesting ID. Things got tense." "Did he threaten you?" Evans asked, his voice cutting through Rossi's hesitation. "Did he raise his voice? Did he make any sudden movements? Did he give you any reason at all, Officer Rossi, to believe he was a danger to you or your partner?" Rossi's gaze dropped to the cracked pavement. He wouldn't look at me. The silence was his answer. A long, drawn-out moment of betrayal that felt like a knife twisting in my gut. Finally, he shook his head. "No, sir," he mumbled. He did not. It was over. My own partner had just hammered the final nail into my coffin. I was done. Miller looked like he was about to have an aneurysm. He jabbed a finger at me. "McCormick, my office. 0800 tomorrow. You bring your union rep, and until then you are on administrative leave. Give your sidearm and shield to Officer Rossi. You're relieved of duty. Effective immediately." The shame was a physical thing, a hot flush that crawled up my neck and burned my face. In front of a dozen other cops under the gaze of the new chief, I unholstered my Glock, ejected the magazine, and cleared the chamber. I handed the heavy, inert piece of metal to Rossi, who took it with trembling hands, refusing to meet my eyes. Then I unclipped my badge from its holder. The weight of it, the familiar heft of the metal I had worn with pride for 2 decades, was gone. I felt naked, exposed. "Now get out of here," Miller snarled. "Go home, and don't talk to anyone." I turned to leave, my shoulders slumped in defeat. My career was over. My pension, my reputation, everything I had worked for was gone because of a 5-minute encounter driven by my own damn pride. I started the long, lonely walk back to the precinct, the flashing lights painting my shadow on the buildings ahead of me. "Officer McCormick," a voice called out, stopping me in my tracks. I turned around. It was Chief Evans. He had walked away from Miller and was now standing a few feet away from me, his expression unreadable in the strobing lights. Miller and the other cops stayed back, giving us space. It was just the 2 of us. "That was a stupid, reckless thing you did," he said, his voice quiet, devoid of the anger he'd shown earlier. It was worse somehow. It was calm, analytical. You let your temper get the best of you. You saw a black man in a neighborhood you thought he didn't belong in, and you decided to teach him a lesson. You became a bully with a badge. "Sir, I started, but he held up a hand to stop me. "Save it. I've heard it all before. I've also been on the receiving end of it more times than I can count. What I haven't heard is what you tell your family when you go home tonight. What you tell them when they ask you why you just threw away a 20-year career." He took a step closer, and his voice dropped even lower. A conspiratorial whisper just for me. "But you and I both know that's not what's going to happen. You'll go to your hearing. Your union rep will argue that you're a good cop who had a bad night. You'll get a lengthy suspension, maybe lose some vacation days, but you'll be back on this street in a few months." He paused, letting the possibility hang in the air, a tiny, unbelievable sliver of hope. My heart skipped a beat. Was he offering me a way out? "But here's the thing, Officer McCormick," he continued, his eyes locking onto mine with an intensity that chilled me to the bone. "I didn't take this job to maintain the status quo. I took it to burn the old way of doing things to the ground." He looked past me, down the dark, empty street. "I know this beat. I grew up just 5 blocks from here. I know exactly what goes on, and I know exactly who's responsible." He looked back at me, a flicker of something unreadable in his eyes. Not pity, not anger, but something else. Something calculating. "Your hearing is scheduled for 2 weeks from now. But Captain Miller's office at 800 tomorrow? That appointment is still on. Only it's not with him. It's with me. And you're not bringing your union rep." The next morning I walked into the precinct like a ghost. The usual AM buzz of shift change, the clatter of keyboards, the easy laughter and grumbled complaints. It all seemed to happen in a different dimension. Cops I'd known for years, guys I'd shared patrol cars and holidays with, suddenly found the floor incredibly interesting when I walked past. Rossi was nowhere to be seen. I was an outcast, a contaminant, the living embodiment of a career-ending mistake. My uniform was gone, replaced by slacks and a polo shirt that felt like a Halloween costume. I felt the weight of my missing sidearm on my hip, a phantom limb that ached with absence. Captain Miller's office was on the 2nd floor. His door was closed, but the nameplate was already gone. In its place was a temporary printed sign that read, "Chief Evans." My stomach did a slow, nauseous roll. This was it. The execution. I knocked. A crisp, "Come in," answered immediately. The office was the same, but different. The clutter of Miller's awards and fishing trophies was gone. The desk was clear except for a laptop and a single manila folder. Chief Evans was sitting behind the desk, not in uniform, but in a sharp, tailored suit. He looked like he belonged there. He gestured to the chair opposite him without looking up from the folder. I sat down, my back ramrod straight, my hands clasped in my lap to keep them from shaking. He didn't speak for what felt like an eternity. He just slowly turned the pages in the folder, his expression unreadable. I realized with a jolt of fresh dread that it was my personnel file. 20 years of my life, my commendations and my complaints all laid bare on his desk. Finally, he closed the folder and looked at me. His gaze was just as intense as it had been under the streetlights, but the anger was gone, replaced by a weary pragmatism. "McCormick, David," he began, his voice calm and even. 22 years on the force, multiple commendations for bravery, a decorated officer. You pulled 2 kids from a burning car in 08. You took a knife to the arm stopping a domestic dispute in 15. You're a good cop, on paper. He leaned forward, lacing his fingers together on the desk. But you're also a dinosaur. You come from an era where a cop's authority was absolute, and a challenge to that authority was a personal insult. Last night, you didn't see a citizen. You saw a nail, and you decided to be the hammer. I opened my mouth to protest, to defend myself, but he cut me off. "Don't. Just listen. I read your file. All of it. I see a pattern. A dozen minor complaints over the years. Excessive force, verbal abuse, improper stop. All of them in this district. All of them against minority residents. They were all dismissed, of course. Your word against theirs. The blue wall stands strong. But the pattern is there. He was right. I knew he was right. I'd always justified it to myself. This was a tough neighborhood. You had to be tough to police it. Respect was everything. But hearing it laid out so clinically, so coldly, I could see it for what it was. A slow poisoning of my own soul. I could fire you, he said simply. I have the cause. Assault, dereliction of duty, conduct unbecoming. The union would fight it, but I'd win. Your career would be over. You'd be a disgrace. That's the easy route, and frankly, it's what my gut tells me to do. I braced myself for the final blow, but it didn't come. But firing you doesn't solve the problem, he continued, steepling his fingers. It just creates an opening for another dinosaur. It treats the symptom, not the disease. The disease is the culture, the US versus them mentality that you displayed so perfectly last night. That's what I'm here to change. He stood up and walked to the window, looking down at the street where we'd met. I told you I grew up here. I know these people. I also know the good cops who walk these streets, who treat people with dignity. And I know the ones like you, who think a badge gives them a free pass to be a bully. My job is to get more of the former and none of the latter. He turned back to me, his face set like stone. So here's the deal, McCormick. I'm not going to fire you. I'm not even going to suspend you. I stared at him, stunned into silence. This made no sense. You're going to be reassigned, he said. Effective immediately, you're being demoted. You're a rookie again. I'm partnering you with Officer Rossi. He's going to be your field training officer. For the next 6 months, you won't make a move without his approval. You will ride with him. You will take orders from him, and you will learn from him. He knows how to talk to people. He knows how to de-escalate. He knows how to be a police officer in the 21st century, not 1995. My jaw dropped. Be trained by Rossi. The kid. It was the deepest humiliation imaginable. It was worse than being fired. And that's not all, Evans went on, his voice hardening. You're going to be the face of my new community outreach initiative. You are going to walk a beat. No car. Just you, your radio, and your feet. You're going to attend every community meeting. You're going to introduce yourself to every shop owner. You're going to learn the names of the kids who hang out on the corner. You are going to listen to their complaints about the police, about cops like you. You are going to stand there and take it. And you are going to learn what it means to serve a community, not occupy it. He walked back to his desk and sat down, his eyes boring into mine. This is your one and only chance. You can take this deal, and maybe, just maybe, you can salvage what's left of your career and become the kind of officer this city actually needs. Or you can refuse, and I will personally see to it that you never wear a badge in this state again. Your pride or your job. The choice is yours. I sat there, the weight of his offer pressing down on me. It was a punishment more profound than any suspension. He wasn't just disciplining me. He was trying to break me down and rebuild me. He was giving me a path to redemption, but it was a path paved with humiliation and crow. I thought about my wife, my mortgage. I thought about the 20 years I'd already given to this job. Was it all for nothing? Could I change? For the first time in a long time, I wasn't sure. But looking at the unyielding certainty in Chief Evans's eyes, I knew one thing. The old way of doing things was over. My time as a hammer was done. It was time to learn how to build something instead. Okay, I said, my voice barely a whisper, the word tasting strange and foreign. I'll do it.